So welcome to Bunny Designs. This is a live show Thursday. It's recorded for Ustream.tv and also for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. I'm working with Derwent Tinted Charcoal. So this is basically a charcoal pencil with a hint or a tint of colour through them. But I've got a couple of mine missing, so I've only got 10 different colours. But I thought I'd do a bit of a rough idea of how actually water-based they are. They don't have the little watercolour brush sign on them that a normal water sketching pencil will have. This is the sketching pencil with a brush on it, and that means that it'll do a wash. It'll be completely water soluble. These are water soluble, but they do not have the sign on them, the little paintbrush. So I've been using Pine Forest TC, which is for tinted charcoal, presumably 14, and TC Sand number 1. And I've just done a mushroom and acorns and some acorn leaves. So I'm going to take the sand colour and just kind of, and I've no points on the end of these either, because I did try and they just kind of disintegrated, so I decided that that wasn't going to be the case. So I think the light's coming down from this angle here, top right, so I'm working on that basis. Now you can blend, I've done a little bit of blending with these, or you can just use them. You can use, no, charcoal will come off, so you've got to be a bit careful. Charcoal is very messy stuff, but they're quite nice to use, these. So I'm going to put, I have 2 more browns. I have a peat, which is kind of a browny colour, and then I've got glowing embers. And if I put a tiny little bit of the glowing embers where I really want a hint of a shadow. So again, we can see so I've just put a bit of a tint, so that I'm using the Derwent number 1 brush because I like these brushes. The top fits on the top of the brush and it gives it a bit of a balance, and it's also the least wet of all the brushes, so I use it in colour books. So this is sketchbook paper, it's sea white sketchbook paper, and I find the little thingy. That's on the first page. But it does work quite well. So I'm not going to touch the leaves. I'm going to go in where it's pale and just manipulate the colour where I want it. And then I've got a pale on the brush, and then activate that dark. Now I've got dark on the brush, so I can either go underneath there, create a bit of darkness, and then come back up this side. So they just kind of melt, just like charcoal that would. Charcoal melts as well. So I've got that little bit on there, and then drag that dark round to cause a shadow. can't work too much in one area, whereas if you had watercolour you could, but we can't do this. So we get that nice highlight there, and then a nice highlight here, and activate that colour. So we've got a really nice kind of effect. Oh, hi Kingo, anybody else popping in? Welcome to Bunny's Designs. I'm having a play with my Derwent charcoal pencils, and although I've missed a couple, I'm using two colours for these acorns. So activating that and then taking that brown around, and then activating that again. To really make it stand out. So again, start with the palest, now once it's completely dried we can always go back in if we need to, so we don't have to panic. And that's probably about enough rummaging that it wants. Now that was a bit dark, but actually that's quite nice. And then we've got that shadow because the light's coming from top right. So we've got our little acorns. Now really you should clean your brush, but actually I quite like the grunginess, because bearing in mind it's a charcoal with a tint of colour through it. So we want to kind of create that little bit of grunginess there, and of course that's going to be dark as well. So I'm doing this first bit first, and then I can always, once it's dried, remember it has to dry. This is like a colour page. It's not watercolour paper. It will not like being scruffed up too much. But with a gentle persuasion, any brush will do. I'm just using this because it's perpetually wet, and it's just creating this nice atmosphere. And then just take that round, and don't forget that little frond in there. Although it's quite good quality sketchbook paper, it isn't. So we've got forest pine and we have mountain blue. So we've got a bit of forest. So I'm going to scratch a little bit of colour into here, and then instead of using the deep ocean, which is kind of like a dark, I'm going to use just a little bit of this where I think I might want a bit of a shadow. And this is dust, it's charcoal, so activate it and it becomes the same as pastel, although pastel's normally more colour. This has got the black charcoal with it. So we have the black charcoal and then we have the colour with it as well. But as you can see, they're just blending into some really nice. And then we can take that back down there to create quite a nice effect. I think my leaves get a bit bigger over time, which is a bit strange. So mountain blue, remember, is the shadow. So I want that at this side and underneath. And then I can put a little bit of the forest here. Now in theory, if I leave that clear, I will get a highlight. So again, I've just made that mark there, so the brush wasn't clean. So I really want to just have a hint of colour, and then manipulate this green. Down into this one, and then we can push it around exactly where we want, and we want a very dark remember what we say about lightish shadows. Now I do have a bit of colour on that, so I could use it. You see how much I've picked up. So go back here, because I want that pale. I don't think oops, I'm going to get it too pale, so just put that in there. So we can get very dark. I've just forgotten that that was dark as well. So we've got two. So I need to scratch. Again, the ocean blue is the darker one. And I do have a lovely highlight on there, so I want to try and keep that if possible. And then scratch a bit of charcoal. Now, as I say, I don't have any sharp points, so you want this side really. That's what we want. So let's start here, and you're grabbing the paint, grabbing the dust basically, and trying to wet it so that it sticks together to form a bit of a watercolour. That's basically what you're doing. And we try not to activate the brush too much. But of course, if you get any dark, grungy corners, then that's fine. And if you don't activate this, you have to put greaseproof paper between, because it's just like charcoal. It's charcoal with a hint of colour, or a tint of colour, just like the graphite tint. But the graphite tint is graphite pencil, so it will stick a little bit better. This doesn't. This would rub off, just like charcoal. So the best way to do is to try and fix it with a brush. You've got to concentrate a bit, and you've got to get right to the edge, because we've drawn it in this pencil as well, so we need to get all of it going in order to make sure it's not going to move. So you can get some really nice effects on there. Oh no, Suzanne, I don't have. Suzanne says, do I have a brass bullet sharpener? I don't, but I think I've got the best sharpener, so I like this one, so I'm going to stick with this automatic long point because it sharpens my mechanical pencils. And although I did buy this set, this little mechanical set here, Leader Art Supplies 5B, and it has a little turner here, so it turns to tell you what, if I can get it to see. No, it's not going to do. 4B and 2B. HB. Now I've actually got a 5 or 6B in here, I think. But what it will do, oops, very quickly, come out, mister. That's it. What it will do, it's a 2mm lens. Oh, sorry, lead. And when you buy it, you get these. You get 12 leads and the pencil. But you also get one of these, which is a little diddy pencil sharpener, which is a 2mm pencil sharpener. And I think it was about £8, this one, or £8. And as you see, I hate to do this, but it stops turning and you have a beautiful point on your mechanical pencil. And this Staedtler one was about £6, and it has a lovely lead with it. I think this one has a lead inside it, but this one's £6. But of course I have my sharpener, which I think is that one. I think that's a 2mm. So if you have the long point and you want the blue one, if you buy the red one, it doesn't have the point. It doesn't have the mechanical pencil points. But if you buy the blue comb long point mechanical pencil, you have a pencil sharpener. So we've got some sharps. So this one, I thought that was quite good value, this particular one, because you've got the 12 leads and you get the little tiny pencil sharpener as well. And I'm a bit of a soft girl. Now one thing you can do with this, and I've just tipped it off that mechanical pencil. Now this one doesn't melt, you see? That is a lead pencil. Got a piece of paper now. So that's a lead pencil. An ordinary lead pencil. If I sharpen this one, and this is a tinted charcoal one, so I need a different sharpener, I think. Can't get that point in there, can I? I can get a few little bits. I can get a few little bits in there. I don't have my blade with me, but I got a few bits. Look, you can see a few tiny little bits, not as many, but this is a completely clean brush. Now look what happens. I've got a wash. That's charcoal. There's still a few tiny little bits. This one is the Derwent sketching pencil, and it has a brush sign on it. If I can get any out of here, because it's a bit harder. Oh, I've got some. Again, just a few little bits, not much. Again, clean brush. Now look what happens. It completely dissolves. And that's because it has the water brush on it. So although the charcoal doesn't have it, it will mix with water because this is charcoal. It's just when they have the water symbol on them, they work a lot better. This is the USA General Sketching and Wash pencil 588, and again this one, it doesn't have the water but it says wash on it, and I really like this one, so we've got one little spare left, so we'll just do this. Oopsie. So if you're looking at a pencil, again, I'm not getting very much off. I don't have the right pencil sharpener, I've got too much lead in that other one. But we have a few tiny bits in there that you can see. So again, clean brush. That one disappears as well, because it has the word wash on it. And that one's a very nice one for doing a black and white sketch. And the next one we've got are these Graphitone ones. And they really do. You just touch them and you've got, this one is 2B, so it's not as black, but it's nearly black. So I'm going to do another video on this method using the other pencils in a little while, but I just thought I'd show you that. So some pencils will and some won't. Always think they won't unless they have the little water brush on them, but most Derwent sketching pencils will, and charcoal will dissolve in water. Oh, I'll have to have a look at that, Suzanne, but I didn't actually intend to do that. So the bullet sharpener is good for charcoal pencils, because I did try to sharpen a couple of mine and I broke them. I probably will use a blade, but I did think about getting rid of most of mine. If I see, I don't think I have a blade handy. I've totally stopped using them, so I've kind of moved them away, the blades. Don't think I've got any blades. Wait a second. I did buy some. Oh, I did. Look, I did buy some. There we go. I bought some. So if you go to model shops, you can buy these. Actually, this is better because they're 85p. So you get long ones, and you get. There's two different ones that I buy. I think it's 10 and 11 I buy. 11 is a long straight side. Oops, can't get into this. These are to go in your scalpels, but you do need to be careful. So this is a really nice tool. Very quickly, I'll just show you this. You have to be very careful. I've been using these blades for almost 50 years and I'm still careful. Sorry, beg your pardon, 40 years. I've been using them since I was 16 years old, because that's how we was taught in the late 1970s, not 1790s, I'm not that old. We were taught to sharpen our pencils with a scalpel blade, but I wanted to show you the charcoal. So in fact, I will keep one of these with my watercolours, because this is how you make a wash. So you can make a wash with any of your watercolour pencils. This is charcoal. There's some very tiny particles in there, but not many. Let me see if I can do that with that. I've put the USA one somewhere. I've got two actually, because it said water on it. Because it said water on it, I bought two. So this is the General Sketch and Wash, and it doesn't have the water brush on it, but it says wash on it, and that's the clue. Make sure it's clean. You shouldn't really do this over your work, but This is just a practice. So you can make a wash like this with most pencils. So again, that's all clean. So that completely disintegrates. So that you sketch and then it'll move, as we call it. So it's quite a dark one, is that one. So I'll do the 8B. So this is the Derwent sketching pencil, dark wash 8B. Now notice if this slips, it's not going to go anywhere near my fingers. You don't do it like this. Always safety first. And I still treat these blades like holding a 2-hour baby. Frightened of slipping and dropping it. So that's a beautiful dark, completely melted. Everything's melted. So you have this lovely black wash, which I am wasting, but it's only a little bit. That will dry, those two, that one I'm not sure, but these two will dry and I can reconstitute them. So I can have various shades of black kind of colour if you want, sketching colour, to do a black and white tonal painting, and that's how you would do it. And what else have I got? As soon as I've actually got them out, I'll do a graphy tint then. So we have the Derwent graphy tints. I'll use a midnight black here. Oopsie, didn't put the blade back. So this is Derwent graphy tint. You see how it curls? So this is a Derwent, and this is what you can use. You could have a wet on wet and scratch these in, scrape them and curl them, and you use this effect when you're doing a dry stone wall. Very, very good. So that was Midnight Black, number 20, the Derwent graphy tint. So again, to clean the brush. A drop of water, completely melts. And I'll just, because I've got them handy, I'll just take that next one out. That was the charcoal one. And I actually have, because it's the way I've got them in my book, I have the black and white of Ivory Black, number 67, of the Derwent watercolour pencil. Now this is the vintage set, but it will do exactly the same as the new set. And I'll scrape again. You can do this for dry stone walling. So just again wet. Everything completely melts. There is not even a speck, because it's designed to do that. That's professional watercolour. The others will dissolve, but some tiny little specks, I mean, they do come back. There's always some very tiny little specks, even in that one. If you let them sit, this will just dry as a watercolour now. Oopsie. So I thought I'd just show you the differences between the charcoals, but even so it's bitty, that's dried now. This will move, but that won't, because that's charcoal. So I'm just going to put that blade away, because I keep them out of the way, although I have taught my children to use them. Well, I say children, they're 17 and nearly 18 and 20, and they always sharpen their pencils with a blade. But I did teach them at an early age, so. But always think, if it slips, where's the blade gonna do? Where gonna go? Now, Derwent have this, so you can use it. They have a sharpening guard, and that's quite good, because if you want to use a blade, you're not going to slip, or if you're going to slip, it stops here. So that's quite a nice little, I think they're about a £5. But most pencils really should be sharpened with a knife. It's just the fact that my hands are so bad. I'm not safe with a knife now. That's the only reason. If my hands were fine, I would never use a pencil sharpener. I would always use a blade, but we have to do what we have to do. So I kind of like those colours. Now I can go in, I use forest green, sand. I use the sand colour, but I think this one is called Glowing Embers. So I'm going to take my damp little brush and I'm just going to pick up a bit of colour. And I've not done this before, so I don't know how much I've picked up, so let's try it on a leaf first. I didn't pick up too much, so that's okay. So I just want to kind of darken this bit again. So I'm putting a bit of a shadow back in. And here would be shadow. That little acorn's got a bit, so we've got a shadow on that one because it's there. This brush is probably a bit big for this particular thing I wanted to do, but never mind. Just to create a bit of a shadow, and this is what you want to build up. Again, this side wants to be in shadow, and so does that. So you have a really lovely deep shadow. And then we've got that kind of... The only problem is you can't work in it twice. Once you've worked in it, you've got to kind of leave it a bit. And then that one have a shadow down that side as well. So you can put a little bit more depth to them. And then if you let that dry, you can go back in and do a bit more. You've got to let it dry. As long as you let it dry, it'll forgive you. But if you don't let it dry, it'll buckle and it will warp. So again, this one could do with a shadow. And then that one has a shadow of the leaf, that top leaf there. And then this one has the shadow as well. So you can decide where the shadow is. And it has its own little bit of shadow down here. And you can create kind of really dark areas if you can't really see or you can't work out where you want things. So let me have a quick look at the time. I will have a look at one of those, Suzanne. It's called a brass bullet sharpener. So that's just a little bit of an acorn tree on just ordinary but good quality sketchbook paper, but nothing too expensive. It's just the sea white. And they're the Derwent Tinted Charcoals. With the Derwent watercolour brush, because it's the least wettest, it's the driest one of them all. Thanks for watching.